Hello there, Internet. My name is Nova Z Gaming, and you're watching the Gaming Front. Today's topic will be one of the most essential and bloodiest battles of the late 20th century. This being the Tet Offensive. So the Tet Offensive gets its name from having begun on the lunar holiday of Tet, which is on January 31st. And the offensive was the most important attack during the whole fucking Vietnam War. So, what makes it so important and so deadly is that it was launched at 13 different cities, major cities in southern and central Vietnam. And by the way, this entire attack took uh, uh, happened all at the same time. The entire attack literally happened within like hours, which is insane because there was no uh, techn technology. So before I get into the battle itself, I'm going to talk about who actually did the fighting, as that is like very important for these types of videos. So I'm going to start with the attackers. So the attacking forces were a mixture of North Vietnamese army, which was like a regular army, like think U.S. Army, regular army trained by people and stuff with regular army with training and equipment and stuff, and the NVA, sorry, Viet Cong, which were basically just rebels, um, or like think about Taliban, um, and yeah, and another difference between the Viet Cong and other forces is the Taliban, Viet Cong used sabotage and hit and run tactics. And combined, the two forces made up around 85,000 people. Facing them were the much better equipped, much better trained Southern Vietnamese army, which similar to the U.S. Army, was a professional army. The South Vietnamese had some 600,000 men. Also, it is important to note that during this offensive, the North Vietnamese were going up against the most powerful military in recorded history. Uh, I am, of course, talking about the U.S. Military, which had deployed some 500,000 soldiers to Vietnam. So now I'm gonna go over the two most important commanders of the battle, as I think it's like very important to talk about them. So the first major commander who I'm going to talk about is the guy in charge of the forces of North Vietnam. And I'm sorry if I screw the pronunciation up. I don't speak Vietnamese. His name was, he was a general named Vo Nguyen Giap, who I will just be referring to as Giap. So, Giap was basically a Chad, as he had been at war for multiple years, not just with the U.S. So here's a little bit of a background about Giap. So Giap grew up in Vietnam, and like that's like most of the North Vietnamese leadership. Um, what separated him from many of his colleagues is that he joined the Communist Party of Vietnam in 1931, and this motherfucking Chad had basically been involved in fighting one way or the other since 1933. That's the year Hitler came to power, by the way. Um, one really important thing that he did is that in 1944 he founded the basically propaganda brigade of the army. That was basically the North Vietnamese army, and by this point, the army was just made up of peasants, which is not good. By 19, I mean, by the way, I should know that he was in charge of the army. By 1954, Gyop had managed to make the army into a force powerful enough to fight world powers. By that I mean is that Gyop created an army that fought and defeated a coalition of the French and the U.S., which are the two of the world's greatest military powers, with the U.S. being number one and well France being pretty damn powerful. He defeated them in a battle. Again, I'm sorry, I'm really bad at these pronunciations. I'm not Vietnamese. Dien Bien Phu, which happened in 1954. So, unlike many great military leaders who I will talk about in further videos, Gyop wasn't exactly a strategic genius. He wasn't an Alexander the Great or a Zhukov. What he was, what he was really, really good at is organizing men and um, coordinating men over vast differences. I mean, as you will see on one of the maps that I have, the Tet Offensive was a massive, massive offensive coordinated to launch attacks throughout the entire country, and this was before the internet. So Gyop somehow organized thousands of soldiers to, well, tens of thousands, probably tens of thousands, to simultaneously attack all the different places that they attacked, which is pretty impressive. Um, Final thing about him, I should note that by January 1967, which is when the battle happened, Gyop had basically become the commander of the entire North Vietnamese army, which makes sense. Alright, so now let's talk about the guy sitting across from him on the proverbial chess table. That was General Westmoreland, who similarly had fought in wars prior, but those mainly being World War II and in Korea. He took over. He took over all command. Sorry, he took over as the top U.S. commander in Vietnam in June in 1964. But that, I mean, he didn't really do a good job. I mean, he is, at least I blame him primarily for the U.S. defeat. Basically, the reason why he was defeated is because he had one strategy, and that is to use U.S. Firepower to win the war. It's what he did is he was like, okay, my strategy to defeat the NVA in Gap is to bomb the living shit out of them, which had worked for the U.S. in World War II and in Korea partly, but it wasn't gonna work in Vietnam. No, it just doesn't. It wasn't gonna work, and it's not gonna. That's a strategy like that isn't gonna work against a force that has already fought an army that uses the same strategy. I mean, it's the same logic behind why the Taliban defeated the U.S. in a 20-year war because we couldn't. The U.S. Army isn't built to fight insurgents. So yeah. But anyhow, having talked about Westmoreland, now I'm basically just going to give you a very quick rundown of the actual battle. So the battle began on January 30th, 1968, when again the NVA and Viet Cong launched a massive series of attacks, basically in 9/11s on 13 major cities in South and Central Vietnam. Now, what's really impressive is all the attacks took place at the same exact time, which is really, really impressive. Uh, and this is before the internet. The next day, Giap ordered another 120 attacks, which is really, really freaking impressive. So, eventually, the the offensive kind of failed because the U.S. and South Vietnamese army managed to take back the cities, but there was a lot of heavy fighting. So and a lot of really heavy fighting, a lot of blood, and some of the worst fighting happened at the Da Nang air base, where the U.S. took 7 days to take it back. 7 days, and there was also the fighting for the Battle of Hue, which is the gameplay in the background that's from the mission that takes place in that battle, I think. Yeah, which was a massive like street to street combat, which surprisingly happened until March 2nd, 1968, which was happened to be my birthday. I'm born 2001 though. And also they attacked Saigon, and that was a pretty fucking not good